National Museum of Art. 100-year Art Achievement Exhibition. This exhibition is sponsored by the Ministry of Culture. The exhibition has gathered a large number of works of Chinese oil painting masters. The students of Tianmi have long looked at them like hungry vultures. The exhibition opened on the first day, and they rushed in with their drawing boards. In the art gallery, I began to copy my favorite works. Wu Guanzhong, Chuan Chenqi, Zhu Nei Hung, Chen Danqing. Before every masterpiece of the famous master, there are students searching according to the picture, trying to find out the biggest secrets between the colors and the lines. Although these works have been described in various albums of deep meaning that the artist himself may not understand, as long as you really face these works, you will find that albums and paintings are basically two things. Gao Fan stood in front of an oil painting that the painter was anonymous, and could no longer move. Anonymous means that the artist is unknown. In a more detailed description, it reads, from an old house in this city, it should have been made around 1920. The painting style has a clear cubist style, and a large number of lines and color blocks depict a terrible scene. Because of this description, this painting was named Hell's Gate. The painting is 40 centimeters high and 37 centimeters high. It is roughly a square. This is a small painting, but when Gao Fan looked at the album before, he thought it should be very large. This illusion means that this unknown painter has mastered space. The profound meanings of line, space, light, and color are hidden among the thousands of things. When they fall into the paint of the painter, they can be integrated into one, which is already a masterpiece. Gao Fan put down the drawing board and began to copy the painting. Copying this kind of thing in the exhibition hall, the only thing needed is courage, because there will be countless people pointing to your paintings, and soon an old man and a girl stood behind Gao Fan. The old man wore a satin Chinese suit, and the girl a jeans t-shirt. One looked pretentious, the other was youthful and beautiful. Little pheasant, you must first learn the appreciation of painting. Just look at the pair in front of you. The name is ridiculous. Picasso was painting Cubism in 1920. That's right, but the painting outlines the character's meticulous style. It's obvious. It's a fake by posterity, and there are fools copying here, isn't it ridiculous? The old man's words were obviously satirizing Gao Fan. Gao Fan tilted the drawing board slightly, turned his back to the old man, and started to draw with a pencil on his own. Why is it fake to have Gongbai style? The girl asked curiously. Cubism only took shape in France around 1910. Our 1920 was the Beiyang period. There is no record to prove that there were masters who could learn Chinese and Western cultures. This painting is mostly Cubism, but small parts are integrated into meticulous style. Feng, if it were really the work of that time, it would not have been unknown in history. The old man's remarks quickly attracted a group of audiences, and everyone was counting on this old man who obviously possessed extremely high artistic knowledge to speak more. But seeing the crowds, the old man was reluctant to speak. He stood behind Gao Fan, staring at Gao Fan's outline, squeezing paint, coloring, backgrounding, coloring. An oil painting requires long or short time to paint, like Leonardo's anatomical style of painting. Someone who writes a thesis for painting a tree, Van Gogh creates passionately, paints 200 in 100 days. There are also multiple ones. The copying is of course faster, especially the copying of Cubism, anyway, it is the line structure and color blocks, just paint on top. While watching Gao Fan's fast painting, the old man frowned tightly together, and was about to talk, but was pulled away by the girl next to him. Gao Fan used his light to catch a glimpse of the two behind the hindrance and finally left, did not care, and continued to paint. About an hour later, the outline of the painting in front of Gao Fan has been seen, and there are a few people around him, but for onlookers, look at the painting Gao Fan is making, and then look at the gate of hell copied by him. All showed a confused look. Because the painting is completely different. The painting Gates of Hell is a scene similar to an abyss. Under the dark red sky, there is a smooth ochre blue cliff. There are dozens of smaller humans climbing on the smooth cliff, but it is obvious there is nowhere to focus. I am looking up for help, and further down, it is a darker abyss. The visual impact of this painting is very strong. Standing in front of this painting, the viewer will soon feel a terrifying and barren emotional wave. The more you try to distinguish the desperation faced by those people on the abyss cliff, the more you will feel chills in your back. More than one person, after a few minutes of careful observation, trembles with their shoulders and says, "It's a bit scary." Can convey emotions and make viewers feel empathy. This is the standard of a masterpiece of art, so the old man said that such a painter cannot be unknown. On the other hand, Gao Fan painted a human face made up of color blocks. This face is calling desperately, and his neck is twisted to an exaggerated degree. The despair and panic in his eyes are the same as the mood conveyed by the gates of hell. But it's different. A bit disgusting. There was a middle-aged woman who watched Gate of Hell for a few minutes, and after watching Gao Fan's copy for a few minutes, she shuddered and made such a criticism. But Gao Fan was satisfied to see that in front of him, there was only a number he could see, jumping from 78/100 to 79/100. Gao Fan watched this number 3 months ago. This semester had just started, and once had a high fever. After the high fever, a number appeared in front of him. At that time, the number was 0/100. After repeatedly judging that he was not mentally troubled with the help of medical methods and psychological tests, Gao Fan discovered that he could increase this number by lowering the rationality of the people around him. The so-called rational value is sanity, and Gao Fan simply refers to it as the san value. Gao Fan obtained the first san value through a static sketch called Boiled Banana. Don't search www.mentalnovel.com. Then he harvested it through Double Disc Fluke. Don't search the second batch of san value. Colorful Munbird's nestling beak. Please cherish your sanity, let his san value exceed 40. Before his fourth piece of Blasting Cockroach was born, he was almost wiped out by his classmates in the same studio. For this reason, Gao Fan had to give up this shortcut and began to obtain the san value through relatively normal works. For example, The Gate of Hell in front of him. When Gao Fan saw it from the gallery's catalogue, he was keenly aware that it has the potential to make people lose the san value. This is a, well, crazy work. The despair that is rendered is everywhere. But it is not the san value that Gao Fan personally lowered. It will not be collected, so he stands here holding the drawing board at the moment, believing that when his copying plan is completed, it will be the season for him to harvest. It's not like. Not at all. I don't know what I am painting at all. The comments of the onlookers could not disturb Gao Fan's heart, but soon a sense of oppression reappeared behind him. Gao Fan turned his head and saw the old man with his eyebrows and his beautiful granddaughter again. This face you painted is so desperate. The girl glanced at Gao Fan's nearly finished work, and felt that this despair had polluted her happy mood. San +1, 80/100. Gao Fan looked at the old man again, expecting the old man to contribute another san value to him. But the old man looked at Gao Fan's work, then at the Gate of Hell, and suddenly said, "You copied a person on the cliff in this painting. Old man, your eyesight is really good." Gao Fan admired. The second day, the third day. Gao Fan copied the Gate of Hell in the exhibition one after another for a week. The old man came around every other day, sometimes by himself, sometimes with his beautiful granddaughter. The old man is also arrogant. He obviously admires Gao Fan, otherwise he would not come to the exhibition. He would stand behind Gao Fan for half an hour, but every sentence has his eyebrows and eyes prickling, and he speaks of Gao Fan's lines. The painting is bad, the colors are messed up, only the overall layout is worth seeing. Boy, you have to learn from Holbein, take a good look at the lines and styles of others, what kind of stuff you draw now, it's pretentious, it's worthless. My idol is Mondrian, how tired learning Holbein's painting is. Gao Fan said slowly. Mondrian is the artist who only painted red, yellow, and blue grids in his later years and was able to sell at sky-high prices. I want to run before I learn how to walk, but a child can't be taught. The old man stunned with a stick, and left angrily. Gao Fan fell silent. Because this is a critical moment. After a week of copying, the SAN value collected by Gao Fan has reached 98/100. Sure enough, the painting Hell's Gate carries magical powers, and the demographics Gao Fan copied from it have reached 23. Ps. Since the exhibition is not allowed to open again, these demos can only be listed in Gao Fan's school dormitory. Unfortunately, after leaving the original Gate of Hell, the demos are just distorted human faces. The effect of reducing the SAN value cannot be achieved. Gao Fan feels that the Gates of Hell portrays despair. Only with the background and infection of this original work will the audience feel like sense of reason of the distorted human figure copied by Gao Fan. In other words, Gao Fan actually stood on the shoulders of his predecessors in order to cast despair to the world. Gao Fan is very grateful to this unknown master. 1 week after copying, Gao Fan confirmed again that the painter who painted the Gate of Hell is a master who combines Chinese and Western. Probably it must be a character like Su Biong. Probably, Gao Fan currently does not have such a broad field of vision, nor can he judge. Gao Fan has always been said to be talented. He likes oil painting, yes, but he doesn't have much enthusiasm for oil painting techniques that are overemphasized. Still life painting is his most hated homework, except for boiled banana. So the old man said that he lacked the basic skills, and he had no face to deny it. In short, now that the SNA value is 98/100, Gao Fan is like a spider waiting for its prey to be hooked, lying between his 3 works called Sketch of Hell Beings, waiting for curious humans to contaminate the spirit. Only put 3 pictures because no more pictures. Gao Fan tried to show all the results and was dismantled by the security guard. Because there are more than 10 paintings, it is equivalent to opening a small exhibition for myself in the exhibition hall. When the students saw Gao Fan doing this, their eyes were full of light, and there was such a shameless and effective method. After all, the 3 words opening painting exhibition are the highest achievement in life in the ears of any art school student. So watching Gao Fan's painting exhibition was demolished by security, everyone laughed at Gao Fan while showing regret. There were 23 people on the cliff of Hell's Gate. Now Gao Fan has copied to the last one, and now there are fewer and fewer people visiting the exhibition, and there are still 3 days before the exhibition ends. Can you get the remaining 2 points of SAN in these 3 days? Gao Fan has no idea. At this time, a sense of oppression came from behind. Gao Fan thinks that the old man is here again. The spirit of this old man was extremely strong. He stared at Gao Fan for a week, and didn't even contribute a little SAN value to Gao Fan. It really made Gao Fan a little irritable, considering whether he should put a taboo under the bed in the bedroom. 2-disc trematodes is used to give the old man pinpin. But, something is wrong. Gao Fan heard a heavy gasp. This sound is kind of like a thirsty dog. He turned his head in surprise and saw a weird wearing a hat. In the early summer of June, he was wearing a black windbreaker and a black round-brimmed hat, hiding his face low under the brim of the hat. Through the faint sunlight coming from outside the exhibition hall, Gao Fan saw his nose and mouth. Presents a weird protrusion. He is standing there, tall. Is like a mountain that suddenly appears. Not only blocked the sun, but even made Gao Fan feel a little cold. The weird man stood there looking at the paintings on the wall, as if fascinated, and at the same time, there was a constant hiss excitement in his mouth and nose. Gao Fan quietly turned his body to his side, trying to see this long portrait more clearly, but he didn't succeed, because the weird suddenly glared at him, then turned around and dashed away. Because he walked too fast, it also ran into a security guard. The security guards were too tall, but they were staggered by the weirdo and almost flew up. "Hey! Stop! Who are you?" The security guard ran after him. The weird man ran faster and faster, and soon disappeared from Gao Fan's sight. And Gao Fan is still in a strange state of horror at this moment. Yu read www.yuyuganshu.com because at that moment, he seemed to see the face of the weird person. Is that a dog face? The teeth are protruding, the lower jaw is retracted, and his eyes are like cold topaz. This has to be. How big a car accident is to be disfigured like this? Gao Fan pinched his chin and thought. Maybe this face might be a little shocking when drawn? The 8th day of the exhibition passed. By the time the museum closed, Gao Fan finally got the 99/100th san value from a mother who came to visit with her daughter. When Mom looked at Gao Fan's paintings and whispered "so disgusting," the 5-year-old daughter asked Gao Fan with great interest, "Brother, are you playing a prank?" Innocent children can always see the truth of the world. Closed, Gao Fan carried the easel and took the bus all the way back to Tianmei. Back to the dormitory, I happened to see Lin Sanyao from the same house as well. Tianmei's art students are in a 2-person dormitory, but the smaller the number of people in the dormitory, the worse the relationship, or the art students are more independent. Anyway, Gao Fan and Lin Sanyao are not pleasing to each other. After greeting, Gao Fan took out the harvest of the week from under the bed and set it up. It feels like a jigsaw puzzle. In addition to painting the 23 faces, Gao Fan also drew other parts smoothly, because copying is considered a lesson and homework is required. Now this gate of hell is equal to being broken down into 50 pieces. Once combined, it becomes a copy of 10 times the area. The anonymous picture you described? Lin Sanyao asked. Well, you came to Langjun. Gao Fan glanced at Lin Sanyao's work, a hyper-realistic painting. This is enough to explain the problem between the two. Impressionism and realism are natural rivals. The sunset has slanted. The lights in the dormitory have not been turned on yet. The last ray of sunlight came in from the window, with the parting night. The cool spot of light is reflected on the 50 paintings of Gao Fan spreading on the ground, so that the masterpiece of Hell's Gate is reproduced in the dormitory. The change and overlap of light and shadow make this not-so-excellent imitation a little more. The rhythm of life. The people who climbed the cliff seemed to come to life at this moment. They were so horrified that they looked at the cliff behind them, their fingers that could not bear their own weight, trembling, as if they would fall into the abyss of despair in a second. The number in front of Gao Fan quietly +1. Has become 100/100. And Lin Sanyao murmured, there must be something terrible under the cliff. I'm going. Gao Fan only felt a surprise. I didn't expect Lin Sanyao to contribute the last point of san value. I really can't find any place to break through the iron shoes. Gao Fan jumped up and grabbed Lin Sanyao's shoulder with excitement. I invite you to dinner. Have a big meal. But then what? After this value is full, what will happen? Gao Fan felt a tidal-like fatigue, spreading from the end of the sky, from all over the world, from the eternal universe, and swallowed him in an instant. He realized that he was about to fall asleep, so he swayed. He threw himself on his bed and murmured, wait for tomorrow. Hey! Gao Fan has entered the dark and sweet dreamland. Lin Sanyao was made inexplicably. He was given a pigeon before he could refuse the meal? It feels a bit subtle and unwilling. Dreaming. Gao Fan knew that he was in a dream. He just felt like he was falling all the time. If he is willing to keep it, he seems to be able to fall into the wasteland. There is a bottomless darkness beneath my feet. Then there was light passing by. That light is a key. An exquisite silver key. Hey? He picked up the silver key and immediately felt the message conveyed in it. You have obtained a door, but don't pry into the truth behind the door. There was a low, hoarse voice speaking to Gao Fan. Hey? This is clearly a key, why is it said that it is a door? This key, where did it come from? On the head? Gao Fan raised his head, he saw everything. Boom! A large amount of information flooded into Gao Fan's eyes like colorful colors. Not only his sight, but also every inch of his body's skin, he received the baptism of knowledge. At this moment, Gao Fan seemed to be standing naked in the storm. Once I discovered that the matter of knowing carried a weight that life could not bear. A hoarse voice whispered in Gao Fan's ear, "You must not open that door, you must not pry into the truth behind the door. The infinite connection is eternal and you and I will eventually go crazy." Gao Fan felt that he must now be like a polio patient with a drooling mouth, because he used every bit of effort to lower his head. The brain is humming. Is like countless trains roaring to and fro, racing in the brain. It seems that half of the stars of the Milky Way have been stuffed into his brain, and countless supernova explosions are rising and falling one after another. He can't even distinguish between dream and reality. He should have woke up. Because his head hits the bedpost, it hurts terribly. But the world has become so noisy that he has no time to notice his pain, and even needs pain to stabilize the absurd world. You see, all the constant sceneries are distorted as if they are about to be disillusioned, the space is distorted, the sky is distorted, the stars are distorted. This made him understand why Van Gogh drew the distorted starry sky because of this. It is the real world in the eyes of the painter after the collapse of sanity. Ha 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 ha! He laughed uncontrollably. He waved his arms frantically, as if to contribute everything to the supreme distortion, because this is the ultimate meaning of life. I'm going crazy. The only reason reminded him. No, I'm crazy. The last reason said. At this time, an inorganic sound that penetrated the mist resounded in Gao Fan's ears. It is detected that the host's SAN value is lower than the warning limit, and the remedial procedure is started immediately. It was as if someone had opened his brain, pouring a lot of ice and snow into it. Was madly buried by ice and snow. Reason returned to this body. The world in Gao Fan's eyes changed from distorted to normal, and he became able to face the world squarely again. The first thing that catches the eye is a line of words written in blood on the floor of the dormitory. Infinite connection is eternal and you and I will eventually go crazy. When Lin Sanyao returned to the bedroom, found that Gao Fan was doing sanitation, with a white bandage wrapped around his head, looking like the milkmaid described by Miller. It's really strange, I've never seen you do dormitory sanitation. You slept for 24 hours and then became a man again. Well, is this blood? You murdered. Lin Sanyao noticed the red on the rag in Gao Fan's hand and the red in the basin. Familiarity, I will slander you like I did. Gao Fan just wiped out the line of blood on the ground. Of course, he went to the clinic to bandage the wound first, and then came back to deal with the traces on the ground. Lin Sanyao looked at Gao Fan suspiciously, and then looked around. He soon discovered that there were a lot of blood stains on the bedding on Gao Fan's bed. Before he could deal with it, his expression became serious. Did you find it? Gao Fan dropped the rag, stood up slowly, staring at Lin Sanyao, 21 years of being incognito. Today is the showdown. My surname is Ma Jiaju and the nickname is given by the people of the rivers and lakes. One hammer fixes the universe, the little prince of Quadrikill, www.mtlnovel.com doesn't rhyme too much. Fork. Lin Sanyao vomited, you are 21st this year, and you have been incognito for 21 years. Obviously, you are reborn. Superficial, this is called rebirth, a systematic rebirth. Gao Fan stretched his waist and looked around. He had already cleaned up a lot, at least not like a crime scene. If you bring the system, you should be sensible first, and make yourself a normal person. Lin Sanyao lay on his bed, ignoring Gao Fan. And Gao Fan began to study his own system. Should be the system. This door that God gave him. Now the number in front of Gao Fan's eyes is more than the simple form of 0/100. But there is something similar to the menu. It says, Go Fan. Occupation, painter. San value, 76/0. Of course, it's more than that. Gao Fan can also see his own skill as a painter, which includes the three major items of line, color, and structure. Line 23/100, color 44/100, structure 50/100. Obviously, if it is a 100-point system, it will not pass. Is more interesting. Gao Fan saw a plus sign after these three items, and he could increase one of them by clicking on these plus signs to consume his own san value. For example, Gao Fan has been troubled by his poor sketching skills. It should be improved as long as the line is improved. Gao Fan clicked the plus after the line several times, and by consuming his own san value, he raised the line item to 35. 1 point of san value for 1 point of skill value, it is very worthwhile. Hey hey! Lin Sanyao heard strange laughter from the bed next door in his sleep. Smiled so much that his stomach was urinating violently. He couldn't help but kicked the bed with his foot. In the middle of the night, Gao Fan, what are you laughing at? Am I smiling? Gao Fan was also quite surprised. He stroked his mouth, and there was a strange arc as expected. I just laughed unknowingly. Sure enough, after the san value decreases, people will be abnormal. Gao Fan looked at the system. His san value has been reduced to 76. If 60 is the passing level, 76 is probably a little abnormal. I just added 12 points of san value to the line technique. In an instant, countless knowledge and experience flooded in like a tide. Many puzzled and extraordinary concepts and techniques were integrated in an instant. His fingers were about to move, and he couldn't wait to think about it. A still life. The reason why he only increased his line technique to 35 is not because Gao Fan cherishes his san value, but he can't even click on it anymore. The plus after the line is gone, but the plus after the color and structure is still there. In other words, the three skill values of line, color, and structure should be mutually restricted. A single item cannot be increased to the maximum, and it must be improved together. But it only needs 300 points of san value to add all three items to the limit. By then, Gao Fan's paintings may be comparable to those of oil painting masters, right? This is why Gao Fan couldn't help laughing out loud. Of course, the san value is too low and the emotions cannot be controlled, which is the more important reason. The san value can no longer be reduced. Gao Fan said to himself. If the san value drops below 60, there may be typical signs of mental illness, and further down, the lower it is, the more dangerous it is. It is likely that below 30, it will become an irrational beast. When it reaches 0, no, it is impossible to be as low as possible. Zeros. Unless external forces interfere, the human san value can never drop to 0 or below. And the so-called external force interference is God. Is the one that Gao Fan once saw in a dream that cannot be looked directly at. Once he looks straight, his san value will drop sharply due to a large amount of knowledge instilled, and eventually he will be alienated into an unknown object. Seeing him is equivalent to the great existence of death. God gave Gao Fan a key. The key is the system. Is this system where san value can be exchanged for skill value? Of course, Gao Fan felt that the greatest effect of this key was not in this, but in the 0 in the number 76/0 of the san value at this moment. The original 0 should be 100, which is all the san value that Gao Fan has collected for 4 months. Because he obtained the system and looked directly at the god, Gao Fan's san value dropped sharply, and it was likely to be reduced to a negative number. At that moment, the world he saw was all distorted and crazy. So the 100 san value reserve after the slash was imported into Gao Fan's own san value, saving Gao Fan. After Gao Fan wakes up, his san value is 76. Through a simple mathematical formula, it can be inferred that the lowest point of Gao Fan's san value has reached 24. At that moment, Gao Fan can no longer look directly at the world. Therefore, this key is to save Gao Fan and let Gao Fan have the qualification to look directly at God once. As for the key in the dream, why in reality, it looks like a system. Gao Fan feels that this is like painting in the classic European oil painting system. The person holding the apple is Eve, the person holding the box is Pandora, and the person wearing a wreath on his head is the of beauty. The important point lies in this. God's ability to act on humans does not lie in the way it acts. The so-called system, is it an alien creature? Is it an ancient, reawakened ancient alien? Or is it purely the muse of the goddess who has blessed mankind and created countless masters of art? There is no way to guess. Of course Gao Fan asked about the system. But no answer was received. That inorganic, cold voice only appeared once in his dream, and then it fell silent, without a response. Unlimited connection eternal and you and I will eventually go crazy. Gao Fan whispered the sentence brought by the system. This is also the content of the blood book written after he went crazy. Before erasing these words, Gao Fan took all the words with his mobile phone. Looking at it again at this moment, Gao Fan can still find those terrible madness in the text. Every stroke bursts out with despair and fear. It is the handwriting of Gao Fan, but the person who wrote the text is absolutely not the current Gao Fan. Silent, black fear, flowing quietly in the bedroom at night. Early the next morning, Gao Fan picked up the easel and went straight to the exhibition. He slept for 24 hours. During the period of, the dormitory manager visited him and made sure that he was asleep and didn't say anything. Art students are always a little maverick. This kind of painting often happens when he is exhausted and sleeps for a whole day. So there is only one day before the end of the exhibition. There is a police car parked outside the exhibition hall where the painting exhibition is located today. Before entering the museum, Gao Fan glanced at the police car a few more times. After checking the certificate issued by Tian Mei with the security guard, he entered the museum and set up his easel in front of his old position, which is the painting of Hell's Gate. Today he is going to draw a whole picture of Gate of Hell, which is a summary of his Tenda copy, and also see if he can get a few more san values. UU reading www.yunsha.com now only has a san value 76. I always feel that there is a crazy villain in my head, who will rush out from time to time. Since the structure of the entire painting is already in his head, Gao Fan does not need to observe the original Hell's Gate, he has already gotten the bottom line quickly. After the line skill is increased to 36, although it has not yet reached the pass line, compared to the original 24-point skill value, it is a full 50% improvement. Therefore, from the sense of Gao Fan, he gains the advancement of his extraordinary. Seeing the lines drawn out on the tip of the pen like flowing water, Gao Fan's brain was ignited as excited. It's so cool! It's so awesome! Gao Fan feels that his right hand and the pen in his hand are an extension of his thinking and inspiration. He can reach any place he wants to reach, and even places he can't think of. With the tip of the pen in his hand, he can draw unexpectedly. Wonderful! What? At this time, there was a soft voice behind Gao Fan. Don't look back. Gao Fan knew that it was the old man who came. You kid, something, these few strokes are a bit reborn. The old man's voice was surprised. Gao Fan was also a little surprised. In the past few days, he realized that the old man should be a savvy man, but he didn't know how well the old man understood, but with just a few strokes, he could see that Gao Fan today is completely different from the previous few days. Yet, the old man didn't know that Gao Fan sacrificed his sanity and improved his line skill by 12 points. It takes a special understanding of oil painting techniques, or even a master's perspective, to see it, right? Thinking of this, Gao Fan looked back at the old man and showed a smile that he had met with him. Awesome, right? It's all for IQ. After chatting with the old man, Gao Fan just drew a few strokes after saying goodbye to the old man, only to see a few policemen coming over and passing in front of him. Reminiscent of the police car outside the exhibition hall, Gao Fan's mind passed a "is it an accident" guess. As expected, within a few minutes, there are pavilion personnel standing in the center of the exhibition hall, announcing to everyone that the Centennial Art Achievement Exhibition is closed ahead of schedule. "Does it end early today?" someone asked. "No, it's officially over." The staff of the pavilion replied, "Thank you for coming and appreciating. Please watch the official account of this pavilion. We will hold various art exhibitions in the near future, so stay tuned." Oh! Everyone is very disappointed. Of course, the original exhibition was about to end, only one day in advance. The disappointment was not serious. "Have you heard? Something happened." While Gao Fan was finishing his easel, two classmates passed by him and whispered, "I just heard a security guard say that his colleague was missing." The police adjusted the surveillance and found that there was an accident in the exhibition hall. It seemed that it was still a homicide, so the exhibition was closed early. Gao Fan heard it in his ears and looked around the exhibition hall. Since it is an art exhibition, there are not many security guards. There are usually only 5. Every Gao Fan recognizes him. After all, he is an art student and is accustomed to observing the looks of people around him. There are really only 4 security guards today. The lesser one, Gao Fan, also has the impression. Gao Fan thought he asked for leave, but it turned out to be missing. Security is also a high-risk profession, Gao Fan thought, but didn't care too much. While he was putting up his easel, he looked a little bit reluctant to look at the gate of hell. In the future, I can see this kind of normal oil painting that can reduce the sand value. I don't know about the Year of the Monkey. The 50 small paintings he copied, and the unfinished panorama at hand, are at best only 20% of the original, and there is no effect of reducing the sand value at all. With a sanity value of 76, Gao Fan stared at this gate of hell, and suddenly the thought of "I grab it and run" came up, but he quickly extinguished this idea in a budding state. "Kidding, now but the legal society." One last look. Gao Fan stared at this masterpiece that no one knew. His eyes were like examining a naked, stunning beauty, scanning the past inch by inch. This masterpiece of Chinese and Western integration, he can be said to be very familiar, but very quickly, the details made him rub his eyes. "Okay? Am I dazzled?" Gao Fan blinked his eyes and looked again. 1, 2, 3, 23, 24. In the screen of Hell's Gate, under the dark red sky and on the ochre blue cliff, there should be only 23 human beings who are about to fall into the bottomless abyss. At this moment, Gao Fan counted the 24th. This is impossible. Gao Fan counted again. But the 24th person, clearly and truly, climbed to the highest point of the cliff. Gao Fan painted small pictures for the 23 cliff fallers, so he knew where everyone was and was easy to distinguish out the location of the 24th person. The 24th person seemed to fall off the cliff last, so his position was only 3 or 4 people high from the top of the cliff, but the cliff was extremely smooth, and the ochre blue painted a smooth texture like iron. No way to climb. While the 24th man raised his head to the sky, the despair on his face seemed to be gushing out from his wide-open mouth. Gao Fan stared at the 24th man's face, subconsciously drawing his portrait on the sketchbook. With a few simple strokes, he sketched a face with northern characteristics, with high cheekbones, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. "I look familiar. Seems to be the missing security guard?" Gao Fan recalled that the day before he awakened the system, the dog-face man standing behind him. When the dog-face man ran away in a hurry, he ran into a security guard. The security guard painted this one now. This memory makes Gao Fan shook his head. Looking at this painting again, Gao Fan's eyes are already panicked. At this moment, there seemed to be a distant, low bark neighing in Gao Fan's ear. Crazy, horse. A layer of invisible black fog enveloped this corner of the exhibition hall. It makes this corner a kind of boiling mystery. Every particle in the air is howling. So that Gao Fan gradually heard what the barking was trying to convey. Stretch your torso and climb towards the abyss, you will gain immortality. At this moment, this pair of gates of hell has a strange appearance in Gao Fan's eyes. Every human figure climbing on the cliff seems to be stretching their torso and climbing under the cliff, while their torso stretches. It's so long, like one maggot after another. No, no, no. Gao Fan instinctively wanted to retreat. He realized that he was bewitched, but he didn't know where the bewitching came from. Is this painting really magical? Is this kind of magic acting on him? The 24th figure, is it the security guard? Is it also bewitched and turned into the desperate figure in the painting? How can Karen climb into the painting? Gao Fan tried to struggle, but like a nightmare, he stared directly at the painting, as if stuck, unable to get rid of it. He didn't know what would happen next, but realized that it was definitely not a good thing. Because of the posture of the people in the painting, it has become more and more vivid and weird. Everyone not only stretches their limbs, but also twists their head and neck to an angle that is less human-like. Is like watching the gradually moving image on the subway window in the subway. The pictures in Gao Fan's eyes changed from slow to faster frame by frame. He suddenly realized that the terrible posture of these cliff fallers was an exaggeration of art, but in this dynamic picture, he found that it was not exaggeration, but it's the posture of these people. In the painting, a person turned his head abruptly, his twisted neck reached a terrifying degree of 180 degrees, and the flesh and blood on his face was pulled off to one side, and there seemed to be a giant worm in his body. Out of the shell. Gao Fan was buzzing with a heavy hammer. He knew that this was a sign of loss of san. www.mentalnovel.com. Attention, the host has come into contact with the lower races. Sanity is polluted. At this time, an inorganic voice suddenly sounded. The voice of immediately recalled Gao Fan's autonomy. With a gesture of twisting his vision, he violently moved his eyes away from the painting. Gao Fan stepped back and started to gasp. At this moment, the corner of the exhibition hall became clear again, and the weird black fog seemed to have never been here. And everything just now seemed to be an illusion of Gao Fan, but he swears that he did hear the phrase "stretch your torso and climb towards the abyss, you will gain eternal life." What the is hiding in this painting? And system. Gao Fan was sure that he heard the sound of the system, and only then awoke from the terrifying situation like a nightmare. He turned on the system, and suddenly realized that his san value, which was originally not much, had dropped by 2 points and became 74/0. This makes Gao Fan's original inadequate reason even worse. If you are controlled by that painting for a while, the san value will drop even more. On the system interface, there is an extra flashing text. Task: reproduce this painting perfectly. The system actually sent a task. At the same time, there are rewards for tasks. Gao Fan looked at the rewards below the task, and couldn't help swallowing, because it was a bit attractive. Reward: 1. San worth 25 points, 2. Introduction to Anatomy. At this time, security had already begun to drive away the people who were still stranded in the exhibition hall. Gao Fan was driven out. Looking at the dazzling sun outside the exhibition hall, Gao Fan was dizzy, and he felt as if he had stepped into one mysterious and unknown world. The next day, classes continue as usual. The copying course is over. The juniors in the painting department of the Academy of Fine Arts return to the classroom to learn various courses in a listless manner, especially the elective cultural course. There are 200 or 300 students in a big class, and there is little seriousness. Attending class. The teacher who teaches ideology and politics has become accustomed to seeing the students under the stage drowsy, and suddenly saw a man who is struggling with writing books, and can't help being a little surprised. Especially this student raised his hand frequently to ask questions. Teacher, why is the cornerstone of the materialist worldview the material category? Gao Fan, isn't it? The ideological and political teacher came to be interested. Ask this question, it proves that you didn't take the class seriously. Teacher, I am ashamed. Gao Fan lowered his head in shame. It's okay, let me tell you more carefully. Why is the material category the cornerstone of the materialist worldview? First of all, because matter is the primary nature, consciousness is the secondary nature, and matter determines consciousness. The teacher began to talk endlessly. Gao Fan sat in the first row, listening attentively while taking notes, and from time to time he raised his head and nodded to make a heart-to-heart understanding. The ideological and political teacher has been giving lectures for so long. Has he ever seen such a cooperative listener who talks so much for a while? Speaking for a full hour, the bell rang for the end of get out of class, but it was still not enough. Gao Fan, come to the office to find me after class if you have any problems, said the ideological and political teacher. I will definitely disturb the teacher often, thank you. Gao Fan was very grateful. The students around me, who know Gao Fan, always feel that they have witnessed the birth of a performance art. Is this still the Gao Fan who slept in class and handed in blank papers in exams? Reborn or hidden conspiracy? Is this kid preparing for the final exam? Take an impression first? Gao Fan felt these surprised gazes, but didn't care. He just looked at the system interface. He currently has the SAN value of 74/0. Behind that 74, a faint plus sign is emerging. Sure enough, the materialistic worldview can save his SAN value. During one class, Gao Fan already felt that his rationality had returned a lot. I went back to buy the works of great men and read them through. Maybe it can increase the value of SAN several times. The ideological and political class is over. Everyone is packing up and preparing to go to the cafeteria to eat. Suddenly the dean of the department walked in, and he stood in front of the blackboard, "Leave the painting department, and the other students can leave." When the students from other departments left the lecture theatre in twos and threes, the dean of the department had already begun to say his purpose. Everyone knows that the biennial art exhibition is about to begin. This time the academy unit will be opened, and the 4 major art academies will participate. Tianmei will also select a representative work from our department to participate in this biennial art exhibition. This is an opportunity for the school leaders to fight for everyone. I hope everyone will sign up. Those who want to participate will report the theme of their work to me before 5 p.m. next Friday. Koch's 32 students in the painting department started talking excitedly. The biennial art exhibition is held every 2 years and is a grand event in the domestic art session. Many modern painting masters showed their prominence from this exhibition. Those well-known painters on the Huron rankings with annual incomes of tens of millions of billions often have them. Experience of exhibiting and winning at the biennial. Not to mention winning, it means having the experience of participating in the biennial. After graduation, write on your resume, and the art teacher in the establishment of a second and third tier city is stable. This is a good thing, so I can't let it go. Teacher, who will select? Which professor? A student asked immediately. This issue is the focus of everyone's concern. Tianmei has several famous professors in the painting circle, but the styles of each professor are not uniform. Whoever selects and judges means that a certain style is more popular. This time we are jointly reviewing. The director said with a smile. At the same time, Mr. Liu was asked to check it out. Lao Liu is Liu Guoying, right? A student asked. Lao Liu is really going to retire and come to Tianmei? A student asked. Yes, Lao Liu is dedicated to teaching and educating people in the Chinese oil painting industry. After retiring from the Royal Academy of Fine Arts, after a sincere invitation from school leaders, he finally agreed to return to China as the honorary principal of Tianmei. He also said that he would bring a group of students personally. "Good opportunity, students should seize it," said the dean of the department. Coax the discussion is louder. Liu Guoying, the non-oil painting circles may not know him, but he is a famous master in the world, and his worth can bring all the painters in the top 50 Huron artists together. It is definitely not a simple figure. Tianmei was able to invite this living treasure of art to be the honorary principal, and he would also take the student personally. That student can be said to be smoked from the ancestral grave. Amidst the discussion, everyone focused on the tall and handsome Lin Sanyao and the small and beautiful Xin Wei. Although there is no superior or inferior literature, but in painting, one must look at talent and hard work. The final works are indeed high and low. Lin Sanyao is good at hyperrealism and Xin Wei is good at contemporaryism. The proficiency of this professor is indeed a bit higher than everyone else. Or, add that. Gao Fan. For Gao Fan, everyone has a consensus that he is talented, but he doesn't work hard, which is a pity. "Director, can you not participate?" Gao Fan raised his hand to ask questions in due course. "It is your freedom to participate or not." The director looked at Gao Fan with a headache, but this time the results will be counted as part of the final results. If you are selected successfully, you will get extra points. "I have to seize the time to study ideological politics, so I will not participate," Gao Fan said. The blade gradually appeared in the director's gaze looking at Gao Fan. After class, Gao Fan went to the cafeteria to buy 2 biscuits and a cup of soy milk, and went straight to the library. Then came over with a pile of books from the Tate Snow area, including various ideological and political books, as well as the only normal human anatomy study guide. Tianmei is an art academy after all, and there are very few medical reference books. Other art academies have the course Art Anatomy, but Tianmei does not. And this normal human anatomy study guide was turned out by Gao Fan in the corner. Only this one, without a semicolon, has accumulated dust on the book. I think I haven't been lucky enough by any student. Reading works of great men is to increase the value of san. Reading www.yukansha.com. Gao Fan always feels that the san value of 74 is slightly lower. From time to time, some crazy thoughts pass through his brain, and his hands and feet are all about to move, to realize those craziness. As for reading anatomy, it is because of system prompts. In the mission of Perfectly Remake Hell's Gate, there is a weird introduction to anatomy in the reward. The system recognizes that Gao Fan's profession is a painter. Why does it reward anatomy? If you think about it the other way around, does learning anatomy help improve Gao Fan's drawing skills? With such curiosity, Gao Fan skipped the afternoon class, read the book in the library for an afternoon with biscuits in his mouth. He was tired of reading the works of great men, and he studied anatomy to relieve boredom. The library has been soaked for 3 days. Every day when I open the library, I go in, and when I close the library, I have the energy to study, which is even harder than that of the seniors who enter the postgraduate entrance examination. Gao Fan didn't work hard, he just didn't like it. If he likes it, he can study every bit of color as if he was pondering Mondrian's work. 3 days of retreat, with remarkable results. San value increased by 3 points. At the same time, Gao Fan obtained the skill of anatomy, 0/100, which was listed on the system, in the drop-down list of his painter career. And when Gao Fan looked at the task reward with pride, since he has learned to anatomy, then the reward for this task should be replaced by another one, such as a mastery in anatomy. But the feedback from the system is always unexpected. Now the task reward has been replaced by 1. San value of 25 points, 2. Introduction to psychology. The profession of painter defined by the system, still need to learn psychology? Gao Fan thought about it, and decided to try the anatomy technique first, which would add value to other techniques. After the previous few experience of using the system SAN value, Gao Fan discovered a characteristic. That is, in the definition of the system, various skill values are easy to pass and difficult to understand. For example, Gao Fan used the 12-point SAN value to increase his line technique by 12 points. If it goes up further, it needs the cooperation of other techniques to continue to improve. It is the same to increase the SAN value by reading ideological and political reading. The first day has increased by 2 points, and the second and third days have only increased by 1 point. After reading further, since you have already understood the entry-level knowledge, you must go deeper. In order to be promoted again, it will take more time. If anatomy really improves the value of the artist's various skills, then at the beginning stage, it should be the biggest improvement. So Gao Fan looked at his current 77/0 SAN value, and first added a bit to the anatomy of 0/100. SAN value becomes 76/0, and anatomy becomes 1/100. Almost at the same time, among the painter's 3 items, the line has become 35 plus 1, the structure has become 50 plus 0.5, and the color has not changed. Can really do. Gao Fan was cruel and lowered his SAN value to 70. In the next second, Gao Fan's anatomy is 8, the line is 35 plus 8, and the structure is 50 plus 4. At present, Gao Fan's overall painter attributes, the 3 major items of line, color, and structure, the final skill value has become 43, 44, and 54. The shortcomings of lines have been made up. Anatomy is the greatest improvement in lines, followed by structure, and no color. If Gao Fan guessed correctly, the effect of psychology on the 3 major aspects of the painter would be exactly the reverse. Haha! Gao Fan laughed nervously. In the library, strange glances were immediately cast from different directions. Gao Fan covered his mouth. The sanity value is only 70, which is really not very reliable. But, feeling the inspiration surging in my mind and the fingers that are about to move, Gao Fan has a feeling of this is very worthwhile. But not enough. Gao Fan recalled the various painting techniques of Hell's Gate in his mind. If you want to reproduce the work perfectly, it is definitely not enough. At least 3 items must reach 50. That doesn't mean that Gao Fan has reached the level of master. If you want to reach the master level, at least each item must be above 80. And the original author of Hell's Gate, the level will be higher. Maybe 90. Gao Fan is just a reenactment, so there is no need to have such a high level, but it is always necessary to have half of it. Therefore, the 3 major items have reached 50, which should be an acceptable dividing line. 50, 50, 50. Gao Fan muttered involuntarily. He pressed his head and pressed the villain who was sometimes mad and sometimes melancholy in his head. Then he started to search the bookshelf for psychology books. Then he found that due to the decrease in the SAN value, his attention was more difficult to concentrate. SAN value does not only represent reason, it can be said to be the general term for the positive mental state of human beings, and it represents all the beauty, order, and rhythm in human thought. When the SAN value decreases, all of this will slip into a negative state. In the next few days, Gao Fan had to stimulate his concentration through pain, but the words in front of him always seemed to show signs of flying high from the book. 1 week of registration time has passed. The dean of the painting department held a small meeting and invited all the professors of the joint review to attend. Liu Guoying also attended the meeting. So the participants in this meeting are 4 professors and an honorary principal. In Tian Miai's external promotion, the 4 professors are all Chinese and foreign artists, but when faced with Liu Guoying, who is wearing a tang costume and walking on crutches, all 4 of them stand to greet him. The 4 professors all know that most of the time in the domestic oil painting industry, they still play with themselves. They are well known in China, but I have to ask which international exhibition hall the paintings are collected by? Didn't the work appear in the auction books of Sotheby's and Christie's? That often only shook his head in embarrassment. But this old man Liu Guoying, whose works have been sold for tens of millions of dollars on Christie's, is not the top group of domestic and foreign oil painters, but it is the highest recognition that Chinese can obtain. Sit, Du Guoying said with a smile. Then began to discuss the list. The most top-notch in this issue are Lin Sanyao and Xin Wei. Lin Sanyao has a family background. He started to learn sketch at the age of 6. He has very strong line ability and is a good seedling. The work he reported this time is self-portrait. Have confidence, a professor said. At a certain stage, many artists will paint their own portraits to test the changes and progress of their painting style. Painting self-portrait is a very iconic move. Superrealism? Crooked door ramp. Self-portrait? Haha, this kid is going to be a photographer, right? Liu Guoying said. The scene was a bit embarrassing for a while. Ultra-realistic works have not been recognized in the international market. This is true. Of course, Tianmi's professors will not publicly promote this as a genre, but Lin Sanyao is really good at this and cannot avoid it. A professor rounded up the field and pointed to another name on the list and said, Xin Wei, this time I will draw a 1 meter and 7 meter painting. She is on the path of abstraction, a bit like Zheng Fanzi, very spiritual. These children in China have been misled by the market. What abstractionism, first-class prices, second-rate techniques, clowns who are being held out by the market. Liu Guoying sharply commented as usual. Lao Liu, this is what we said and said, if it is spread out, it won't sound very good. The director smiled awkwardly. Liu Guoying is now the honorary principal of Tianmi. His words and deeds represent Tianmi. If these words are spread out, they will be verbal. After all, destroying a reputation is equivalent to cutting a person's wealth, and cutting a person's wealth is tantamount to killing a parent. Yet, Liu Guoying turned over the list in his hand. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com suddenly asked, why didn't you see Gao Fan? Okay? Several professors looked at each other. How could Liu Guoying know Gao Fan's name? There are more than 30 students in the third year of the painting department. The 4 professors naturally recognize all of them, and they also know this crooked seedling who is good talent but not hard-working. Do you know Gao Fan? A professor asked. I saw him at the Centennial exhibition. That kid is not good at basic skills, but he has a good talent. This time. Didn't sign up? Liu Guoying asked. Yes, he didn't sign up. The director replied. Report for him. Liu Guoying said. This. The director thought for a while, and reported it. At most I couldn't submit the work. Just write untitled in your name, and write it first. Liu Guoying said. Liu Guoying and Gao Fan probably have relatives? Take care of this? Several professors muttered in their hearts. The director wanted to persuade him, but his friendship with Liu Guoying was not so good. It would be impolite to speak rashly. Gao Fan is really a piece of mud that can't support the wall. At that time, he will lose the face of Mr. Liu at most. Anyway, Mr. Liu has a big face. Almost so shameless. I felt relieved when I thought about it. By the way, I have already done everything about your granddaughter Liu Fei's enrollment. I can go directly to the sculpture department at that time. The director said suddenly. It was the first time that several other professors heard about this. Liu Guoying's granddaughter turned out to be studying sculpture. Although foreigners don't talk about inheritance, it's weird to learn sculptures instead of following a master's national treasure. Don't worry about her, let her suffer for a few days, and then go back to England obediently. Her parents sent her to watch me. Liu Guoying said in a bad mood. Then how unreasonable, you old man. Several professors muttered in their hearts. The 10th day of Gao Fan's dizzy retreat and study hard. I can't get any nutrition from ideology and politics. It's not that ideology and politics are really nutritious, but that Gao Fan's current san value is low and time is limited, so I can't read the essence of it. Instead, I got 3 points from the works of great men. San, let his san value return to 73. Immediately after studying hard for days, the san value dropped a little bit and became 72. It seems that the inconcentration of willpower caused by excessive fatigue will slowly reduce the san value. Gao Fan's current san value is 72/0. The 72 in front of is Gao Fan's own san value. The 0 behind has not fluctuated. Gao Fan estimated that it was the san value he obtained from others. After the slash can be used to supplement the front of the slash. And finally I got started with psychology, and I have a skill item of psychology, 0/100. Gao Fan looked at the tasks given by the system rewards have become a weird introduction to investigation. Has an orange skill finally spawned? The skill of investigation, Gao Fan doesn't know how to start it. In other words, in theory, it should be a skill that Gao Fan cannot learn at this stage. But I'm a painter, why do I want to investigate? And how does this skill work? All of this has to be studied after getting the skills. Now, Gao Fan raised his psychology to 2 first. The san value is 70, the color skill value immediately +2 becomes 46 and the structure is +1, 55, the line does not change, it is still 43. As expected by Gao Fan, the value of psychology skills is directly promoted to the color of the painter's 3 major categories, which also improves the structure without affecting the line. Lines cannot be improved. According to Gao Fan's estimation, at least the color must be increased to 50 or more. Can complete the task given by the system. After completing the mission, you will get 25 points of san value, you can make up for the lost sanity, and there will be a surplus. Is worth fighting for. A smile appeared at the corner of Gao Fan's mouth. Immediately, psychology has improved to 6. The san value immediately dropped to 66, the color was 50, the structure was raised to 57, and the lines remained unchanged, still 43. Looking at this row of numbers, Gao Fan realized that his highest skill value was about to catch up with his san value, which is really interesting. He couldn't help but laugh. Classmates, SHH, please don't disturb others. The teacher of the library has been paying attention to Gao Fan for a long time. Seeing him constantly showing all kinds of evil and mad silly smiles, he was still happy to speak out, causing others to look at him repeatedly, and he came over to remind him in a low voice. Gao Fan shut up immediately and made a gesture of covering his mouth with tape, and then his eyes sparkled and whispered, "Teacher, I think that after I retreat this time, I am already in the world. Down. Invincible. Enemy. You have inspiration, right? Then go and draw." The librarian teacher was already quite familiar with the style of these art students. He stretched out his hand and patted Gao Fan on the shoulder, "But pay attention to your body, this you haven't eaten much for a few days." Okay. Gao Fan first returned the book, and then went to the cafeteria to pack a pile of sesame seeds. This stuff was high in oil and salt, and topped with several bowls of rice. It was the first choice for art students during retreat, and he went straight to the studio. Tianmei Junior Painting Department shares a studio. This is a rectangular space of more than 300 square meters. There are drawing boards, frame wood, and linens piled up everywhere. When they are not going to cultural classes, students either stand in front of the drawing boards and apply smudges or squat on one side to stretch the canvas. Most art students are accustomed to stretching the canvas by themselves, because the ones bought outside are always uneven, so small paintings of 40 and 50 are fine. If it is a large painting of more than 100, it will die. At this time, you can see that when the canvas was made according to the diamond-shaped stretch method, several boys and girls pulled the canvas with the strength of a pig. The rest of the bone glue brush and the white powder are all meticulous, but there is no technical content. Before the Renaissance, there were no painters in Europe. They were all painters. In everyone's eyes, there is no difference between painters and oil-knee painters. This is the truth. Gao Fan went into the painting room, and at a glance, he was all there. There are a total of 32 students in the third year of the Tian Mei painting department, standing neatly in front of their respective canvases. This was a grand occasion when the human body sketching class was held before. But this time it's not a human body sketch, because there is no or naked man in front of you, but, hey? Gao Fan vaguely remembered something that seemed to be related to something, but it was like recalling a scene in a dream, which vaguely appeared and couldn't remember it. Therefore, Gao Fan paced behind the most conspicuous Xin Wei. The reason why he was conspicuous was not because Xin Wei was beautiful. Of course, Xin Wei was indeed very beautiful. She carried the softness and coquettishness of Yunyu Jiangnan, like Li Qin, known as Little Li Qin in the Lu Academy, is the school flower of this year. Xin Wei is so pretty. According to legend, there was a human body sketching class and a male model was invited. In order to master the structure of the human body, the male model was naked. Xin Wei stood in the first row. Of course, there were other girls in the painting room. In short, maybe girls who study fine arts are more beautiful. This gossip news is bound to become an enduring anecdote for Tian Mei. Although the girls will make fun of each other, there is actually a bit of controversy, and most of the rumors point to Xin Wei. Now, Gao Fan pays attention to Xin Wei because of the big painting in front of Xin Wei that is taller than her. This has to be 1.7 meters, right? Great! The more you paint, the more you test the basic skills and the creative layout color lines. www.mtlnovel.com. Gao Fan looked at Xin Wei's finish, and was painting a city with the bright colors he usually does best. From the bird's eye view, the colors are distinct with a hint of childishness and innocence. There is still a bit of disharmony. Gao Fan's structural skill value at this moment has reached 57. Although he has not passed the 100 point scale, if 100 points are at the master level, Gao Fan is definitely not mediocre at this moment, and it is even better than before he obtained the system. A big chunk. Therefore, he saw Xin Wei's large painting, which is obviously out of balance in structure. The skyline is upward, leaving the sky and the sun too bright, while the proportions of the shades of the various sceneries in the city are too small. Waiting for the completion of the painting will give people a sense of Tofivi upside down. If usual, Gao Fan probably doesn't bother to say anything. Now, his san value is low, and his creative inspiration is full, so he said, the structure is wrong, the bright part is too heavy, and the dividing line has to go up. As he said, Gao Fan also swiped his finger on the drawing, which meant that the scoring boundary was here. Xin Wei's Hung thought about it. It has been a week since this painting was created. She also realized that something was wrong, but she had already finished the painting and drew a half. Want to shovel and repaint? Still feels wrong? I was so absorbed in my thoughts that I didn't even know that the oil paint was applied to his face. At this moment, Gao Fan was reminded behind his back, and he immediately realized that there was a structural problem. Ah! Thanks! Xin Wei was about to open his mouth to thank him, but when he turned around he caught a glimpse of Gao Fan. An unexpected expression suddenly appeared on his delicate face. Madman? Are you still alive? Hee, no thanks. Gao Fan waved his hand, not taking away a cloud. Wait, don't go. Xin Wei grabbed Gao Fan. Crazy man, tell me again, is the demarcation line drawn here? Xin Wei just went to Tian Mei, that is, 3 years ago, he wrote a love letter to Gao Fan. At that time, Xin Wei was still a little yellow-haired girl. Just after the military training, she looked like a small briquettes. At that time, Gao Fan was enrolled with the aura of the first place, and his qualities that the teacher called the mud can't support the wall have not been discovered by everyone. After the military training, he played a guitar with a guitar at the literary evening party. At that time, you at the same table, with short hair and pretty short hair and fair face, made countless female classmates hate the injustice of the sky, why this guy was more or less moved with it when he didn't get tanned. According to the current words, Gao Fan should have been given the priority right to choose a spouse for 4 years, but Gao Fan, who fell quickly, lost this right in a short time, and Xin Wei is like a beautiful jade stripped of dust. In that way, she grew up from a yellow-haired girl to a big beauty. Now when I mention that love letter, Xin Wei will still blush, but it has been forcibly explained as young ignorance has been fooled by that beautiful skin of a lunatic. Gao Fan dealt with Xin Wei a few words, and went to his easel. On the easel is the gate of hell that Gao Fan copied last time. It seems that there are flaws everywhere and it is very clumsy. Gao Fan took the spatula and started poking down the paint. Lin Sanyao suddenly said, "What are you painting?" Gao Fan made a but couldn't hear it clearly. The title of the biennial art exhibition is untitled, "What do you want to paint?" Lin Sanyao asked again. Untitled? Gao Fan poked out a piece of red oil paint, which is too red. Compared with the dark red sky of the original work, it is nothing short of an effect. Oh, so you are all painting the exhibited works of the biennial art exhibition. Gao Fan understood, no wonder the people gathered so much. What kind of big-tailed wolf, aren't you? Lin Sanyao rolled his eyes. I didn't sign up. Gao Fan replied. Continue to pretend. Lin Sanyao didn't bother to care about him. Gao Fan glanced at Lin Sanyao's paintings. The dense lines outline a human face. It is a self-portrait with precise structure and good description. Lin Sanyao has been learning to sketch since he was a child. Gao Fan thinks that his line skills are worth more than 55. Var. This guy is serious. Although Gao Fan confirmed that he did not participate in the competition, it is true that the artistic atmosphere and competitive atmosphere around him made him unable to hold his fingers. Come on, come on, come on, my silhouette, my color. Gao Fan took the pen to outline the outline again in the painting, and then fell into a state of almost obsessiveness. The pen in his hand and the canvas in front of him instantly became his entire world. Lin Sanyao glanced, looking at the smooth lines on the canvas in Gao Fan's pen, frowned slightly. This guy is different from before. Although Gao Fan's san value is low, he can't concentrate his spirit in reading, but it may be caused by his talent. Even if his spirit is a little frantic, he can be completely immersed in it as long as he stands in front of the drawing board and waits for him to come back. It was the same night that the entire Gate of Hell parody had begun to take shape. He didn't know at all. When he was painting, the director came and turned around, and several professors also turned around. Several professors checked the works of each classmate separately. When they checked Gao Fan, they not only stopped, but also showed a surprised expression, which was obviously a bit unexpected. Some classmates also heard the professors muttering, "This level of improvement is a bit big." Did President Liu pointed it out? This surprised other students, and they put down their brushes one after another, and went to visit behind Gao Fan, and saw that the painting in front of me, whether it is color, structure, or line, seems to be at the level of an album. Isn't this the Hell's Gate in the Centennial Exhibition? Gao Fan intends to use one of his qualifications as a competition for the biennial. Someone whispered. The college unit of the biennial is allowed to be copied. Another student said, of course the main unit will not be copied, but the college unit is possible. This is a bit of a steal, right? A classmate said. You can steal too, try the Mona Lisa format. Answered him next to him. Well, don't you want to die? It makes sense to think about it. If you try to imitate a master's anonymous author's painting, the judges can't see where the style comes from. You think it's your original creation. Take advantage. Then you change the theme. It's too late, there are only 3 days left. Time is not for me. IQ limits your shamelessness. Why imitating the Mona Lisa must die? Because this painting is so famous, no matter how good it is also an imitation. In the oil painting session, the painting looks like a craftsman. Even if you can paint the RMB perfectly, your painting it's not worth the money. You have to start a school to be a master, so the most important thing is that you don't paint like it. Of course Gao Fan didn't think so much. He is completely unaware of the discussions happening around him. It was only at 9 o'clock in the evening, suddenly regaining consciousness, that the overall structure of the painting in front of him was completed, but the system gave only task not completed, similarity 71%. This is so far away. A perfect imitation must achieve a similarity of 99.99%. Bit of biscuits in his mouth, Gao Fan began to use the knife to scrape down the color. Hey! Why are you scratching it? It's so good! Suddenly there was a scream around him. Gao Fan turned his head and saw Xin Wei and Lin Sanyao. The painting doesn't look like. Gao Fan said while biting the biscuits. It's already very good, it's a pity. Xin Wei said. Let's have a meal together, the cafeteria will be out of dinner later. Although Lin Sanyao said so, there was obviously a tone of you better not agree in his words. Gao Fan knows that Lin Sanyao is chasing Xinwei. In fact, all the boys in the painting department are interested in Xinwei. If it is normal, Gao Fan would definitely be willing to be a troublemaker. By the way, Lin Sanyao will have a roast duck meal. But today no, Gao Fan is very anxious today. Don't go. Gao Fan shook his head. www.mentalnovel.com. There was joy in Lin Sanyao's eyes. Xin Wei did not give up. You haven't eaten for a day. You can't just eat biscuits, let's go. Don't go, don't bother me. Gao Fan said impatiently. When the san value is low, he doesn't have much patience. You are such a lunatic, don't know what is good or bad. Xin Wei was angry, and turned around and left. Lin Sanyao hurried to catch up. Gao Fan didn't pay attention to the departure of the two of them. Instead, he frowned and stared at the canvas in front of him. In his mind, he was constantly recalling the details of the original work. Although there were photos and sketches, there was no original work in front of him, and he wanted to imitate it to perfection. It's really hard. Look at your skill value again. San value 66, color 50, structure 57, line 43, anatomy 8, psychology 6. Close your eyes and recall. Like a beating movement in his head, recalling the colors, structure, and lines in Hell's Gate. After for a while, Gao Fan came to the conclusion that if you want to imitate perfectly without the original comparison, you must have a higher skill value. The line ability must be stronger. The original work is to draw the human figure with the traditional Chinese painting technique. I have not learned the fine brushwork, so I have to have a stronger line ability. In the past, when I directly used the san value to improve the line skills, it was impossible to improve after 12 points. Now, it may be that other values are higher, or because of the minor anatomy and psychology, the line skills value is behind the plus sign has reappeared. Increase 1, 2, 3. Gao Fan directly increased the line skill value to 50. At this time, the plus sign disappeared again. Gao Fan's san value dropped to 59. Is below the passing line. Xin did not mention that he was wearing a disposable lunch box with roast duck rice, and when he returned to the studio, he planned several versions of rhetoric in his mind. Hey, lunatic, this eldest lady sees you are going to die of starvation. I'm especially rewarded. No, this statement is too domineering, not only seems to be guilty, but also with that guy's temper, it is very likely that the whole box of lunch will be held on the ground. Among all the people Xin Wei met, no one can be more difficult to serve than Gao Fan. Come and eat some, don't starve yourself. I bother. I'm so angry. Is not acting in a TV series. If you put it there quietly, leave a note. This is a good practice. But what is written on the note? Xin Wei returned to the studio again with 100 points of entanglement. Sure enough, Gao Fan is still here. Under the bright light of the studio, Gao Fan's tall and thin figure was wrapped in a large sweater. His hair was half long, and it was shiny under the light. It must have been a long time since he washed it. He waved his hands wholeheartedly. The carbon pen should be reprimming. Xin Wei coughed. But Gao Fan didn't hear it. Xin Wei walked behind Gao Fan and happened to see Gao Fan waving his arm, drawing an arc from sky to earth on the canvas in front of him. This arc was soft and flexible, and Xin Wei seemed to see a glow on the canvas. Surfaced. Impressive. Xin Wei's eyes widened. Sketching has always been Gao Fan's weakness. He almost skipped all the static sketching lessons because he said that he didn't like those boring lines. He liked colors and all kinds of colors. In order to like it, he came to Tianmei to go to school. If he didn't like it, what else would he paint? Waywardly like a big artist. But there is no such thing as a big artist. Except for a flash of surprise at the new military training party, he looks like a Prince Charming. At other times, Gao Fan was very difficult to get along with. He seemed to be reluctant to associate with other people at all. This made him walk alone, just like an alien. Xin Wei also hates Gao Fan's character very much. She called the lunatic name first, but she never said clearly. She also really appreciates Gao Fan's talents, and Xin Wei, who has accepted artistic rendering since childhood in his eyes, Gao Fan should be a genius artist. Xin Wei's father is a well-known domestic psychologist. When Xin Wei once described Gao Fan to him, Xin Wei's father smiled and said, "That child just looks like an artist, and personality and talent are not the same thing. You will understand when you grow up." To this day, Xin Wei has gradually realized that she only drew a template for talented artists, and Gao Fan happened to fit this template very well, but whether or not he is genius depends on the work. In the 3 years of university, Gao Fan did not show corresponding talents, so this appreciation gradually fades. However, at this moment, Gao Fan's stroke that fell on the canvas caused Xin Wei's heart to jump wildly. This stroke was too exciting. Looking at Gao Fan at this moment, she seemed to have seen the freshman military training evening. The handsome boy in white fluttering. Looked at it for a while. Xin did not realize that this was not a flash of inspiration. High line ability, it seems that in a short period of time, it has got an extraordinary improvement. It seems to be almost comparable to Lin Sanyao, but how is this possible? And Gao Fan never noticed Xin Wei. With doubts and incomprehension, Xin Wei put the roast duck rice behind Gao Fan and went back to the bedroom without leaving a note. The next day, Xin Wei hurried to the studio and met several classmates the same early, including Lin Sanyao, but did not see Gao Fan in front of Gao Fan's easel. "Where is the madman?" Xin Wei asked Lin Sanyao. "I went back early in the morning, and I was asleep," Lin Sanyao said, glanced at Gao Fan's drawing board, and said, "It's probably not done well, it looks very annoying." Xin Wei walked to Gao Fan's drawing board and saw the canvas that had been shoveled into a mess. "Is fine, right? I don't know what he wanted to paint." Xin Wei thought, and looked down again. That roast duck rice was put there in its entirety, how it came from yesterday, and what it is today. She sighed a little. Lin Sanyao looked at all this with jealous light flashing in his eyes. Of course he remembered this lunchbox. When he came to the studio this morning, he noticed it. Think about it, after only a few bites last night, Xin Wei hurriedly ended the dinner and went to give it to him. Gao Fan can't help but feel even more uncomfortable when he packs a box lunch. Gao Fan only came to the studio at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously it was a wash, the half-length hair was tied behind his head, and the thin face was full of energy. In terms of appearance, Gao Fan could directly play the role of Dolly, one of the top 3 most handsome painters in history. But today Gao Fan was obviously in a worse mood. He came with a forward lawsuit. He came to the studio and started shoveling the dye that he hadn't finished shoveling yesterday. Seeing his bearish appearance, Xianwei didn't want to be boring to himself, just forgotten. After seeing it, Gao Fan hugged his shoulders in front of the canvas for a while, and then began to paint. Is a strange feeling. When Gao Fan started to paint, his expression became a bit crazy. Gao Fan's fault can be detected by all his classmates. He now seems to be covering an aura of human beings approaching, staring at the painting in front of him, as if staring at the enemy, holding some kind of be sure to complete the obsession, coloring in Fei Kuiyun pen. Until 11 o'clock in the evening. Gao Fan did not eat or drink for 8 full hours. Xianwei, before leaving after 9 o'clock, put a copy of Gao Fan's favorite roast duck rice behind him as usual, then glanced at Gao Fan's paintings, and then Xianwei showed a shocked expression. Good, very good. Is better than yesterday. If it is said yesterday that Xianwei could still see what is good about Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, then Xianwei can't understand it anymore. It just feels that both the color and the layout are particularly impactful. A sense of despair rushed out of the canvas. That small picture seems to paint a big world. The painting only reveals a corner of the world. In addition, there are boundless unknowns and horrors that are conceived in that world and may pass through this small window at any time. Rush to the real world. Is kind of horrible. Xianwei thought, not feeling shivering. 3 o'clock in the morning. Gao Fan made the last stroke. The system gives feedback in time. The similarity is 99.99%, the mission is completed, the reward, before the task is completed, Gao Fan's system status is as follows: San value 49, color 54, structure 57, line 55, anatomy 8, psychology 6. The San value of 49 has already fallen below the warning line. When Gao Fan watched the world, he was already distorted. He was extremely happy for a moment, and he was so angry that his thoughts exploded. The chaos has surpassed reason and occupied Gao Fan's body and mind. This is an adventure. On the second attempt, Gao Fan thought that his skill value was still not enough to complete a 100% imitation of Hell's Gate. After, he again added the small amount of sand to the 3 major items, especially the lines. If he can't finish this time, Gao Fan knows that he might be sent to a mental hospital. But he suddenly had an inspiration at that time. Hell's Gate was originally a crazy and desperate work. He lowered the sand value to a lower level. Wouldn't it be more in line with the spiritual temperament that the original author wanted to express? It was very risky, but he succeeded.